one, and also how to go about writing what you've analyzed. So I decided to structure this presentation in a way that I can have three different sections, each sections giving different details of what we're looking at. Without much ado, let's delve into the aspects of the background itself, because it's important for you to know what you want to do before moving ahead to do those particular literature review that you want to conduct. I felt it's important to bring back the understanding of what a literature review is, because there is this misconception among most researchers and most academics that we just want to bring together words of what people have said, put them together and complete a literature review chapter. I'm glad this morning or this afternoon, I'm having audience ranging from master's students to PhD students. You have those of us already in academics practicing, researchers in the industry and the likes. I think this applies to all of us all across board. The literature review session is not just for us to increase the number of spaces in our dissertation, in our thesis, in our papers. It's not just there for formalities. Majorly, it is a critical evaluation of previous studies. And by critical evaluation, we're saying you're trying to look at what others have done in order to come up with something reasonable, in order to come up with an answer to the questions that you've set already. It's not just about Mr. A said this, Mr. B said this, and at the end of the day, you conclude. It must have a logical flow, and it must direct you to a particular point in that particular research you're conducting. So in most cases, I always like to describe the literature review as an ongoing conversation, an ongoing scholarly conversation that is in progress. Now you're coming into this conversation, your literature review is going to tell your readers that you are listening, or you've listened to what people have said, and now you have something valuable to contribute. It's like you walking into a room of people talking. You want to be sure that you listen first, you understand what they are saying, and then you can now contribute logically. It will make no sense when you walk into a room of people talking and you just start talking. You won't understand where the conversation started from. You won't understand the different perspective of people, and you will not be able to contribute meaningfully. So you want to see the literature review as an ongoing conversation. The first point of getting answers to your research question is the literature review. And that is why your literature review is very important. You've gotten your research topic, you have your aim, you have the problem already that you want to solve. And based on the problem that you want to solve, you've been able to highlight 3, 4, 5 questions that you need to answer at the end of your research. When you answer those questions, you're able to say, yes, this is the problem, and this is how to solve it. For you to be able to answer that research question you've set in that particular study, you first of all need to look at the body of literature. So for example, I want to ask myself, what are the critical success factors for attaining sustainable construction in Nigeria? The first point of call will be my literature review. I need to understand what others have said about the factors that are needed for sustainable construction in Nigeria. This is just to create like a background for you to understand that it is not just about writing or making up numbers, but it plays a critical factor in your study. There are some needs for literature review. I know most of us are conversant with this, but I'm just going to reiterate. It helps you to widen your understanding of the research area. You first of all get your topic. The first thing you want to do is to do a preliminary review. You look at what others have said, then you can start off with your own area. It can also help you to gain knowledge of existing theoretical frameworks, especially at the PhD level. For those of you doing PhD, you find out that your supervisor will tell you what theoretical framework underpins the PhD you're doing or the study you're doing. Through the existing literature, you can be able to unhead these different theories. It can help you to clarify your problem and much more, create an avenue for you to be able to contextualize the findings. So when you're done with your research, irrespective of where you're conducting it, when you get your findings, if you're doing lab work, you're doing surveys, whatever method you're using, the findings you get at the end of the day, you should be able to contextualize it to say within the body of literature, this is how my findings relate to what others have said, or this is how it deviates to what others have said. You won't be able to make that conclusion or draw that logical conclusion if you've not done your literature review correctly. And ideally, a good literature review should be able to flesh out the background of the study. By fleshing out the background of the study, we mean you're trying to create a good foundation for the particular study so that somebody reading it will be able to understand where you're coming from. So, and in most cases, we always tell students, colleagues to write from the broad to the narrow. Another aspect is it should be able to critically assess the important research trends. And if you see, I've highlighted some aspects. Research trends, very important. The literature review is not just to make up numbers, like I said earlier. It is there for you to be able to say, this is the trend within this area. And ideally, when I write, I prefer using the chronological approach, whereby you want to write from the earliest information to the latest. So you've gathered so many materials you've been reading. I want to start from, let's say, 2010. Start telling my story from 2010, the studies that I've looked at that particular area. Then I move on to 2011, 2012, down to 2022. It's from the, it tells like a trend within that research area. Also, a good literature review should be able to identify potential gaps. So you're not just reviewing what others have said for reviewing sake. You're trying to identify what are they saying by looking at the trends and looking at what they've not said within that particular area of study. And lastly, it should be able to establish a need. For current or future research projects, do we really need this study? If we know the trajectory of that particular problem, how people have researched that particular problem, we've been able to say this is what they are not saying. Do we need to go further, or do we just need to stop because they've actually explored almost everything we're looking at? That is what an ideal literature review should be. And this is just to give you a background of that. Now, a literature review should be, it can either be systematic or bibliometric. Remember that this section is about bibliometric review. So I think it's important for us to understand the trend. There is this whole trend of the systematic review, which now cascaded down to the bibliometric. And within the architecture, engineering, and construction industry right now, the bibliometric review is becoming very popular. And I think that's part of the reason why we have sections like these to be able to educate ourselves on how to conduct this recent trend of literature review. I always view the systematic review as the normal common practice, what we've been doing, what we're all used to. Your supervisor is telling you, or your institution says there must be a literature review chapter. So you go down, you check within the database that you've selected, you gather different materials, you read them, you understand the trend or the themes in them, then you start writing them in themes. So you say the factors affecting sustainable construction in general, based on existing studies, include level of awareness, knowledge, lack of understanding, and the likes. What you're doing right now is trying to carry out a systematic approach of grouping your findings into themes. So it is a common approach that we're used to. It helps you to summarize and synthesize the findings of existing literature and, on a research topic, and it is mostly used when the scope of the review is specific. You have a specific area you want to look at. The factors affecting sustainable construction. You go around, you download materials on that area. The data or the materials, data in this context will be your literature or the papers you're gathering. For a systematic review, it is very small. You can have up to 10, 20 papers talking about the factors. And this is enough, ideally is enough for you to be able to conduct your literature review or your systematic literature review in that case. It is qualitative in nature because you're looking at what others have said and you're going to draw up logical conclusion from what they've said. That is what we're used to. However, within the architecture, engineering and construction, and as well as operation management field right now, there is this growing use of bibliometric review. Or sometimes you see papers where people talk about scientometric review. I'll try to explain the difference between the bibliometric and the scientometric as we go along. When you now have, you've set a particular area, you have a large amount of data, large amount of literature, you cannot read each of them. I doubt there's anyone online this morning that will tell you you can sit down at a goal and read 800, 1,000, 5,000 papers. In such a case, you want to conduct a bibliometric review. And the aim is to summarize large quantities of bibliometric data to present the state of intellectual structure and the emerging traits. If you recall earlier when I said that a good literature review should be able to identify trends, identify gaps, and tell if those gaps or that particular study is needed. So with the bibliometric review, you can actually achieve that. You can see the trend in the existing study. You can tell this is what people have been saying, this is what they are not saying, and this is why we need to conduct this study. It is used when the scope of the review is broad, when you have a broad context. So you want to define a phenomenon, for example, you want to look at how a phenomenon is working. Currently, we're talking about the need for sustainable construction, the need for smart cities. Let's say you want to look at smart cities in Nigeria, for example. You want to conduct a bibliometric review to actually understand what is the trend of research in smart city area. Before you now delve into it, you now get to understand, okay, this is what people are saying in this area, but this aspect, they are not talking about it. I think this aspect is where I should focus my research on. The data required is large and it can be quantitative. Yes, we're used to literature being qualitative because it's the view of others, but when you now bring in numerical data into it, when you start looking at the number of published manuscripts, the number of citations, you're bringing in numbers, it becomes quantitative in nature. So that's just to create a background of what the whole bibliometric review is. Let's understand itself. Now we're going into the aspect of the bibliometric itself. What exactly is bibliometric? I hope we can still hear me, please.
We can, sir.
All right, thank you very much. What exactly is bibliometric? The word biblio is a Greek word, which means book, and the metrics itself is the measurement. So invariably we're saying bibliometric is the measurement of books. My favorite definition here is the bibliometrics is the application of quantitative analysis in the bibliographic references of body of literature. So what we're saying here is your analysis you do is dependent on the body of the work you've downloaded, the references, the abstract and the likes will now come together, use through different algorithms, will come up with information that you're looking for. So bibliometrics simply means this measurement of books. These are some of the uses of bibliometric. There are so many of them, but I always like to look at it as the process of me uncovering emerging trends in article. If you do not understand the use of the bibliometric, you might find yourself confused and writing a paper or writing a chapter that is actually not needed. You want to understand why you're using it. And most cases, I use it for to uncover emerging trends. Some people might want to look at performance of journals before submitting to that particular journal. You want to see how have they been performing over the years. And there's also this important aspect where you need to understand that journals have area of interest. You might submit a particular paper to a journal this year, 5 years ago, sorry, and you submit the same area this year, they will not accept it because they've moved away from that area. So through a bibliometric review, you can understand their current area of focus and what they are doing. You can also use it to explore intellectual structure of a specific domain, to estimate comprehensiveness down to you being able to develop norms for standardization. However, we need to understand the importance of this particular approach. If we don't understand its importance, we can't actually see the need to use them. First, it helps you to showcase the importance and impact of your research. I keep saying trends. If you don't understand the trend, you cannot tell if your research is relevant. Yes, you want to. There was a certain time for those of us with the quantity survey profession or quantity survey field. There was a certain time whereby if you want to do a postgraduate study, you're not talking about cost performance, time performance, quality. You're not talking about different procurement method. You're not doing research. If you come up with those kind of topic right now, somebody will look at you, okay, what exactly are you adding to the body of knowledge? So you want to understand, is my study still relevant? What I'm looking at, is it relevant or is it obsolete already? The approach will help you to determine that. It helps you to gain one-stop overview and most importantly, identify knowledge gaps. But by the time you understand what others are saying and you can see what they are not saying, then you can say, yes, I have a gap in knowledge that I'm going to contribute to. Also, it will help you strengthen that gap you've identified. It's not enough for you to say, okay, this is a gap. To strengthen it, you can now use a bibliometric review to say, let's say you've done a normal systematic review, you've looked at other studies, you've seen what they've said. You say, okay, this is my gap. People are talking about smart city, smart city, smart city. However, nobody is talking about the aspect of policies. There needs to be the right policy for smart city to be adopted, particularly in a country like Nigeria. So You say you want to go through the route of the policies aspect. You want to develop a good policy that will help us achieve smart city in Nigeria. To strengthen that gap, it's not enough for you to just say, because people are not saying it, then it is a gap. You can now conduct a bibliometric review. Look at existing study. It will help you to show clearly that, yes, people are talking about smart city in terms of big data analytics, the tools needed and the likes. But truly, if you look at the keywords coming out, nobody is talking about policies. And then you can now use that to reinforce the aspect of policy. It can help you identify leading authors, because most times if you don't know who and who is talking in that area, you might not be able to cite the appropriate work. We've seen instances where people will submit papers to journal for publication, and you see the journal editor sending it back to say you've not cited A, B, C, and D. These are leading authors in this area. Until you cite them, we're not going to accept your paper. Things like that you find that you need a you need a bibliometric review to understand the leading authors in that area. It can help you drive web ideas, and most importantly, the bibliometric review is a good avenue to publish in reputable journals even before the field and quantitative data analysis is conducted. I always like to say I discovered the bibliometric review late. I always like to put it that way. I discovered this somewhere around early 2018. Before then, I always believed I can only publish journal papers that have empirical data. I must have done my analysis, done my calculations, have good results, outputs that I can submit to a journal. However, after I discovered the bibliometric review, I realized it's actually easy also to publish literature review papers in journals, not just conferences. I remember my first paper then, I submitted it to one of the IEEE conferences in Nigeria. Then I think it was going to be hosted in Nigeria. After the first review came back with a very nice set of comments, and I sent it to my co-supervisor then, Dr. Oke, and he looked at it, he was like, guy, you're going to waste this paper sending it to a conference. Why not just do A, B, C, and D? He gave me guidelines on what to do. And that became my first literature review paper, journal paper. And to date, it's been cited by most people who also do a literature review. So it's a good avenue, especially for those of us in academics, those of us that don't have time to go to the field to gather survey data, or you don't have time to go into the lab to do analysis. Bibliometric review can be the best option for you to come up with logical contribution to the body of knowledge. So these are just some of the importance of the bibliometric review itself. The bibliometric review is designed in such a way that there are three aspects. You have the performance analysis, the science mapping, and the network analysis, and I'll show each of them as we go along. The performance analysis is where you look at the performance of authors. Who are the authors talking in this area? Then you're able to say, okay, this person, this person, this person are the key authors in this area. Which country is the most proactive in this particular area you're looking at? Like, for instance, if you're talking about technological, if you're looking at technology in construction, looking at studies around digital technologies and the likes, by the time you start searching, you see studies mostly from China, mostly from China, US, UK, and Germany. Through this, you're able to say, these are the countries talking. And at the end of the day, you will realize that studies are not coming out from your own area, and that can also help you reinforce your arguments that there is a need for this study within this cultural context. The science mapping aspect talks about the citation. We want to see who are the most cited authors in this area. But citation, we must understand, is one of the major parameters in determining the contribution of academics. So somebody's saying, oh, I'm a leading author in this area. You look at the citation, and the citation works in a way that if I publish a paper today, somebody else reads that paper, use that paper, cite that paper, and publish. It's not enough to just write, put it in the shelf, and publish that particular paper. Then one citation counts for me. So you see, it's a very long process. For somebody to have a high number of citations, means that that person's study has contributed a lot within the body of knowledge, and then we can say this paper is actually valuable. With the science mapping aspect also, you can look at co-authorship. Who and who is talking in this area? What is the relationship between author A and author B? Are they having some kind of relationship in that particular area? And then you move on to the aspect of the network analysis. The network analysis help you to be able to look at how words are connecting to each other. And that is where you can now determine the trend in that particular study area. And most of the key important aspect there is the aspect of the visualization. The visualization is where you now come up with maps that gives you keywords where things are clustered together. Within this visualization aspect, you have different softwares. It's just like when you want to do your data analysis. Let's say you want to do your structural equation model, for example. You can decide to use Amos, you can decide to use EQS, you can use Smart PLS, you can use your LensRail and the likes, depending on the type of analysis or the type of data you've been able to acquire. Same thing with the visualization. I can use Git Excel. Some people are good at using Gephi, Sitespace. I know Sitespace was very common at one particular point in time, but over time, the Verse Viewer has become a more popular tool, and that is what I'm going to be basing the analysis of in this particular research. The Verse Viewer, I think, it has gained prominence because it is free, so you don't need to pay for it. You don't need to install, you just download. It comes as a zip file, you just copy. So you don't need to install it into your system before you can use it. So it's easier to use. Moreover, you have so many, should I call it videos, tutorials on how to use the Verse Viewer online. So it becomes easier and people are actually exploring it. And it's something I learned on my own. And funny enough was, the year I discovered it, there was a seminar on EAT in my institution here, where I missed it. But prior to that, I've already been exploring it, and with time, I was able to get a hand of it. So I'm going to be doing a bibliometric using the Verse Viewer. If you have access to Sitespace and you can use Sitespace is fine. But I'm looking at the Verse Viewer. This link here is something you can easily click and download it. This is just an interface of what it looks like. And if you are able to get it, we'll look into that later. The software itself, it's a tool for visualization, and it's majorly to see what is the trend and how is the research trend going on in that particular area, and what you need to also add to it. It has a text mining functionality, and these are just explanation of what the software is all about itself. This right here, we have some of the different databases that you can explore, and I'll give you the best one I used later. Some terminologies we should look at with this particular tool is the fact that you will see things like items, link, network, and cluster. By items, we mean the object of interest. The item might be the publications. It might be the researchers, let's say different authors, you want to see the countries or the different keywords in that particular area of study. Link is how they connect to each other. How is author A connected to author B, or how is the keywords connecting to each other? You have network also, and you have clusters to see all that as we go along. For you to be able to use the Verse Viewer, you need a database. I think this is something very, very important that we need to mention. You cannot use the Verse Viewer, or you cannot do a bibliometric review without access to a database. So if your institution are subscribed to either your Web of Science or your Scopus, then you're good to go. However, if you do not have that access, collaboration becomes very important. We have people outside institutions that you can easily collaborate with, and they will be able to help you download materials that you need to do your analysis. So it's not a big thing. If you don't have access to it, try to collaborate with people in institutions that have access to these databases. But with the Verse Viewer uses the Web of Science, the Scopus, PubMed, or Crossref. I personally use the Scopus because Scopus is one of the widest coverage, and it is more recent than Web of Science. It also has a significant overlap with studies from the Web of Science. So if you check Web of Science, there's that possibility you see those materials also in Scopus. So with this, when you have that database, you can carry out different analysis. You can look at network citation of papers. You can look at co-authorship, and we'll look at that also in this particular presentation. Just a quick understanding. People that can use Verse Viewer or that are using Verse Viewer, I got this from their website. Over time, researchers are using it. Research institutions are also using it. Universities, academic bodies. Last year, I think I did a review of the different publications and people publishing within our research unit here, so where I am right now. And I was able to tell who and who is publishing in which particular area, the area of interest of the research group, what is their citation counts, how many papers have they published and the likes. So it's somehow it was for a report actually, and it can help as an institution also to tell what is the contribution of your institution in this particular area, and then you can see areas to improve. Research funders also use it, scientific publishers and the industry. If you see the graph here, it shows a high usage of 2016. I think this was done in 2017. I'm sure if they do the analysis of the level of usage of WAiC right now in 2022, it would have gone very high. Before going to using the WAiC itself, there are some basic principles we must know. You must acknowledge the different use cases of visualization. Why exactly are you using visualization? Why do you need visualization in that study you're doing? It might be because you want to provide insight, like I said, the issue of smart cities in Nigeria. You want to develop, look at policies in smart cities in Nigeria. You might just first of all want to give a background and understanding of what smart city is and what people are doing already in the smart city area. So you're providing insight. Or maybe you want to provide or attract attention to say, yes, people are talking about smart city in different areas, but nobody is talking about the aspect of policy. So you're going to attract attention to the aspect of policy. You just need to understand what exactly are you aiming at and what do you want to achieve when you're done with that bibliometric review. You need to find an appropriate balance between sophistication and methodological transparency. Sometimes we want to put so many things within the bibliometric review, and at the end of the day, the methodology will not fit. Okay, be aware of visualization tends to give simplified representation of underlying data, and that is where your own understanding comes in. And much more, you need to combine visualization with other pieces of evidence, including your own intuitive judgment, your own thinking, your own understanding comes to play. And I always tell people, the WAiC viewer will not write the literature review for you. No, it will only give you the right information for you to be able to write that particular section. So you must have your own understanding also of the study. I must understand what smart city is all about before I start conducting my bibliometric review. And the information I get from the bibliometric review will now help me to improve what I want to write. So that's the background. Let's look at how to conduct a bibliometric review itself. Here I have the different links if you want to download the WAiC viewer. Like I said earlier, it's free. You can easily click on the link here or just download from any of this link. Also, if you don't have Java installed on your laptop already, which I feel most times you will have them, if you don't have it, it will require you to download Java. Java is also free. You can just click on this link to download within, I think, a matter of seconds and just install. It's very easy. If you've downloaded or you have your download already, the first thing you want to do is to outline the aim and objective. I mean, if you remember earlier I said, sometimes people get confused, which feel bibliometric review is just to have some fancy figures and maps in our paper. You must have a target. You must understand that you're contributing to the existing knowledge. You must understand that there are some set of objectives that you're contributing. So over and above the objectives you've set for that particular study, when you extract a particular section to work on, you must also consciously formulate some objectives for that particular area. So I'm using a typical example of what I've been saying since. We want to look at smart city development. My study wants to look at smart city development in Nigeria. However, I want to understand the trend of smart cities publication and research in the area. So I'm setting out 4 objectives for myself to say, at the end of the study, I should be able to understand or know the different countries and authors with the highest focus on smart city development. If I know this, I'll be able to know where to concentrate my search. Also, I need to be able to identify most cited published works and sources. I then want to map out the focus in smart city development in the last 10 years to see what are people talking about, what area have they been focusing on, and that will tell me if my research is relevant or not. And lastly, I should be able to identify the trends. I know what the area they are focusing on. I should be able to see how has this focus shifted from in the last 10 years, how have they moved from one point of focus to another point of focus. So these are my 4 objectives that somehow I've consciously designed for myself. You don't need to write them down sometimes. You just need to know this is what I want to achieve, especially when you're writing a paper. You should be able to say, at the end of this particular topic, and I get this information, this is what I should achieve. So, if we understand that first step, I said earlier you need a database, and I use Scopus most times. And I said if you don't have access to Scopus, you can collaborate with people in institutions that have access to these databases. I know I've collaborated with some people outside in Nigeria also to help get this data out. Now, if you have access to data to Scopus database or Web of Science, it becomes very easy. All you want to do is you know the area you want to work on. So my study is on smart city development. I need to now pick out keywords. And by keywords, I mean, within that topic, smart city development, I must look for related words in that particular area. So when people talk about smart city, sometimes they can describe it as smart city, intelligent city, technology-driven cities, and the likes. These keywords, I will write them down and then use them to search. I'm using a very simple example here where I'm looking at smart city development or smart cities development. So I'm just looking at the variations, right? Because some people will write it as smart city, some will write it as smart cities. You can put as many as you want. You can give different variation. I can also come to say or intelligent city or intelligent cities, depending on how far I want to go. But for the presentation purpose, I'm just using this simple example. Another thing you will notice in the keyword is that I used quotation marks. And this is because I have just more than one word. If you have more than one word, you're using quotation mark for it to identify it as a single phrase within the paper. And if you see I'm using or, it means that either you see smart city development or smart cities development, it is fine. If I change this or to and, A-N-D, it means that I'm telling the algorithm to search for papers that have both smart city development and smart cities development. In that case, I will have fewer numbers of papers to extract. That's just this trick behind the keywords. So you want to identify all keywords relating to that particular study or that particular area and use that. Here, you just leave it as article, title, abstract, and keywords. What I'm saying here is that the algorithm should look for this word within the abstract, the title of the paper, or the keywords on that paper. And I'm setting it for from 2010 to 2020, which is when I carried out this analysis. If you look at my slide, I've picked out different areas that are important so that when you're looking at it later, you're able to remember. Here, I'm looking at article and conference papers. I can do it here or I can do it later when I'm refining. If you click on search, what we have is this page. So what I'm saying, what we have here is that 306 documents have either smart city development or smart cities development in their title, abstract, or keywords. Now, because this page, all these 306 documents are coming from diverse fields, I need to now refine it. And by refining it means that I want to restrict it to my own domain. So an overview, I have 306 from my initial extraction. And for these 306 publications from 2010 to 2020, I will now refine them based on the subject area. Remember, it is dependent on your own study. If you're doing something different, the area of study might be different. You can see here I have computer science, engineering, and environmental science. And this is because I'm talking about smart city and technology. Okay. Also, I'm refining it based on source type. Now, this is where the difference between bibliometric and scientometric review comes in. If you see some papers, they tell you an assessment of digital construction is scientometric review or a bibliometric review. A bibliometric review means that you are looking at all data, irrespective of where they are published, books, book chapter, you're looking at journal articles, reviews, and the likes. However, when you now restrict it to either journal or conference papers alone, you're looking at scientometric review. That's just the major difference, but it's just like a subset of, scientometric is a subset of your bibliometric. Mostly, because most papers are published in English, and sometimes you have others coming from different languages, I like to also refine using English language. So that will now help me reduce my paper from 306 to 83. What we're saying here is that these 83 papers are specifically from engineering, computer science, and environmental sciences. Since we understand that this is what we're looking for, all I need to do now is to click on all, then export, because I need that data to be able to input it into my Voice Viewer. If I click on all, I select all, and I export, I'm going to have this page. I need to export my Scopus file as an Excel file, a CSV Excel file. Okay, if you're using your Web of Science database, you'll most likely be downloading your file as your, I think your plain text or your BibTeX, one of the two. But I'm used to Scopus, so I use my CSV file. Also, I make sure I select all these headings: citation information, bibliographic information, and other information. This is so that the Voice Viewer will have a rich data to be able to analyze. And once you click on all this heading, everything under highlights. So that it makes it very easy. And then I can export. Once I click on export here, you can see there's also an arrow here. You can click on that, and that will take you, help you to download your file. You download this file, you save it in a particular folder that you want to use for that particular paper or that chapter or that research you're doing. The next step, which is step 3, remember step 1, you identify your aim and your objective for that particular research or that particular bibliometric review. The second step is for you to download the bibliographic data. Next is for you to download the Voice Viewer if you've not done that already, and be able to open the data you downloaded in the Voice Viewer. And it is also very easy. You've downloaded the CSV file, you've saved it in a particular folder. When you open your Voice Viewer, remember I said you don't need to install, you just download. You open it within that zip file, you bring it out. You see your Voice Viewer icon there, you just open. It opens like this. It is very straightforward. So to make it easy for us to understand, when you're looking back at the presentation, I've numbered the steps you need to take. So the first thing you want to do is to create. When you click on create, you have this particular drop-down coming up. Once you have this drop-down, click on create a map based on bibliographic data. This is the second step. You're not using create a map based on network because you've not done it already. If you've done it already and you have saved a network file, you can now open using the create map based on network file just to remember what you've done before. But when you're starting afresh from the beginning, you create, then you go to create a map based on bibliographic data, then you click on next. When you click on next, it shows you this next drop-down, this particular drop-down. You click on data from bibliographic database file, you click on next. This is very straightforward. When you're doing it on your own, just follow the steps and it will be very easy for you to be able to get to your data. So when you click on read data from the bibliographic database, click on next. It comes down with this drop down also. Then you can now pick Web of Science, Scopus, Dimension, or PubMed. Because we downloaded Scopus CSV file, you click on Scopus. Then you click on these 3 dots here. It will now help you to locate that CSV file you've saved. That's why I said it's better you create a folder for it so you can easily look for it when you're searching it. If you click on next, we'll now get to us trying to solve each of the objectives. What we've done already is to import our CSV file into Voice Viewer. Now, how do we use this information to now achieve the objectives that we've set? Remember, the first objective is to identify the countries and authors with the highest focus on smart city in the last 10 years. And the document we've downloaded is for the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2020. So to get this information and achieve this objective using the bibliometric review, once you click on next after importing that file, you get this drop down. If you see the background remains the same, but the drop down is what is changed. So number 9 here says countries. If I click on leave my selection on citation and I go to country, what I'm saying is I want to search the countries with the highest citations, and invariably that will also give me the countries with the highest number of publications. If I want to see, remember the other second objective is it's one objective merging into 2 countries and authors. I'll come back again to look at the authors. But first, let's look at the country aspect. Citation, if I select country, I click on next, which is my number 10, it will give me this drop down. Now, the function of this dropdown is for you to be able to define the number of documents per country. Most times this will come as 1. It means 1 document per country. And if we look down here, you see of the 38 countries, it means that all the 83 papers that we downloaded when we downloaded for our document from Scopus, all emanated from 38 different countries. Now, ideally, I like to think that sometimes some of these countries might actually not be contributing. It might be as a result of one person just collaborating with somebody else. So to be able to determine the impact and contribution of that country, I mostly move my number of documents to 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the amount of data I've gathered. In this case, if I move it to 2, and I want to say this country must have contributed in terms of citation also, the citation will always come as 0. So you can also increase the citations, maybe 10 if you like, depending on, there is no hard rule. You must be able to be logical and know what you're looking for. So I want to see who are the key, what's the key country that is actually contributing. So this country must have published at least 2 papers, and those 2 papers must have been cited at least 10 times. And if I do that, you will see that out of the 38 countries, only 11 countries met this threshold. It means that only 11 countries have at least 2 documents that have been cited up to 10 times. Okay, so if I click on next, so can you guys still hear me, please? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we are with you.
Okay.
Yeah, we are hearing. We are with you.
You are audible, sir.
All right. So if I click on next, remember we want to know the countries that are most cited in this area. If I click on next, what we have is this drop down. So this tells me that all these countries here have at least 2 documents. If you see the lowest here is 2. You will see that countries like Canada and France have the highest number of publication of 13 documents each. This will also tell me the number of citations. So you can see, remember I said citation is how academics, institutions are being rated to see how many citations are admitting from that particular area. So we can say that, China has 13 documents, and India has 13 documents. Sorry, I think I was looking at something else. So 13 documents from China and India and United States have 10. It means that these are the 3 top countries with the highest number of publications in this area. And if we look at their impact, we'll find that China has the highest impact with 321 citations. What I want to do with this information now is to export it. So if you right-click on this particular document, it will show you export selected keywords, okay? And I have that written under here. Once you export this selected keywords, it's going to export as a notepad. You can copy from that notepad. I'm sure most of us know how to use Excel. Copy it to Excel, and you can arrange it in descending order. So, or ascending order, depending on what you want. So most times I use descending order so that I can see which country is first in terms of the number of documents or in terms of the number of citations. Now, with that information in Excel, you know you can create a bar graph or a chart, whatever charts you want to use to now give a pictorial view of the countries. You can also go further to use the mapchart.net. The mapchart.net gives you the different maps. You can look at regional maps, you can look at countries, and you can now impute this information into the map, and you have something like this. So within this map, you can see those information I've gathered from Bosnia. I can impute it here. China has the highest documents with highest citation, followed by India, United States, like that, down to United Kingdom with just 2 documents. What this tells me is that I can have a pictorial view, one snapshot view of what the publication is like within smart city around the world. And if you look carefully, you can see that in Africa, there's nothing coming out. It means that there's no academics in African context or the continent of Africa that is working on smart city development and that has published in this area. And that tells me that my study, if I now look at smart city development in Nigeria, I am going to make significant contribution from the African continent. And that helps me to reinforce the need for this particular study. So you understand now based on the importance I was talking about earlier. You can now use that to reinforce. I can also go further to even look at, so see, even in Nigeria context, there is nothing common. So because of this, we need this particular study to be able to contribute to existing body of knowledge. That is the aspect of the country. Now let's look at the aspect of the authors. If we go back to that same point, remember I said, if you click on author, you click on next, this is what you get, this drop down. Remember the first time we used country, this time we're using author. So that is 11. If you click on 11, which is the author, you get this drop down. Same thing, it will tell you how many documents do you want from each author and how many citations do you want. Citation tells you if this author is contributing or not. So the 83 documents we downloaded emanated from 264 authors, meaning main author, co-authors and the likes. I have 264. Now, if we say one document per author, and also that author must have been cited at least 27, at least 20 times, that will help us reduce the number from 264 to 27. If we click on next, we'll get this drop down. This drop down shows us all the authors who have published in that area and that have been cited up to 20 times. Same principle applies here. You right click, you export in Notepad, then you can copy it to Excel. When you get to Excel, you can now rearrange it. I'll show you a sample as well. You can now rearrange it to say, hey, based on the highest citation to the lowest citation. That way you can now tell that this particular author is a key publisher in the area of smart city. If we look at what I have here, you can see Hamad has 272 citations. It means that the paper from Hamad has made significant impact within the area of smart city. And that will help me achieve my first objective of knowing which country and which author is publishing in this particular area. And within my paper or my chapter, I can now discuss to say, if we are looking for studies, we should focus on studies coming out from China, US, and India in terms of smart city. And if we want to look at contribution, we should be looking at the study of Harvard, looking at the study of Domingo and the likes. If that objective is achieved, we need to now move to the second objective, and which is for us to identify the most cited published works. And why you're doing this is so that you can tell people that these are the works that are most relevant within the area of smart city development and the sources where you can get this material from. And it also helps to you as the researcher to also know where to publish your work when it's time for you to publish it, because then you'll be able to say, these journals are the ones that are most cited in this area. If I want to make impact, I should submit my paper to that journal. And also, definitely I know my journal is within the scope of that, my paper is within the scope of that journal. So to understand this or to carry out this, the same approach as we've used, your drop down is, you go back to your drop down after your Scopus file has been imputed. Same place, we have the citation. Remember earlier we did authors and countries. This time around, we're going to look at the documents, most cited documents, and most cited source. If you start off with the document, you click on document, you click on next, what you will have is this drop down. You see now it's different. There's no number of citation. No number of, earlier you have document and citation, but this time around you have only citation because you're looking at the number of documents. So ideally we have 83 documents. If we say that that document, for it to be recognized, remember I said there's no hard flow. You just need to know what is convenient for you. Remember, you're going to impute this data into a table format. You don't want a very long table that becomes meaningless. You want to have the main information in that particular table. So let's assume I decide to say that document must have been cited at least 10 times. This number reduces to 11. If I want to reduce it further, I can increase this to like 20, and you might find out this will reduce to like 5 or 6. But I left it at 10 so that I can get at least 11 documents that I can discuss. If I click on next after these 10 documents have been selected, I will have this particular document coming out. So this is showing me the different papers that are most cited on smart city development. And you can see here from the level of citation, you have 272. It means that if I am looking at smart city development and I have not looked at this particular study of Ratory MM 2016, I have not actually started. Because for this work to have been cited up to 272 times, it means that that work is actually relevant. So I now need to look for that material and read that and be able to cite that. And also future researchers can look at a particular study and say, yes, this is important. Same principle apply. You right click, you select and export it as a notepad, copy it to Excel. You can now use it to make your table. What I do in this case, like I'll show you later, I pick this, copy it to Excel and create multiple columns. I'll go back to my CSV file and find information of each of this paper. Most times I read their abstract to know the method they've used, their area of focus, and what they achieved. Then I can have that on my table, which creates a more impressive appeal. I'll show you an example. If we do that, we are able to see which document is most cited. Also, to now see which of the sources, which of the journal sources or conference outlets is most used for smart city development. Same principle, if I click on sources, it gives me this drop down. Minimum number is 1 to say at least that outlet must have published 1 paper. Then I still leave my citation as 10. I'll find out that all the papers, 83 papers emanated from 57 sources. However, only 13 of them have been cited up to 10 times. So if I click on next also, I get all the sources. From this particular drop down, I can see who and who is talking or publishing, or the journals or outlets that are publishing in the area of smart city development. And same thing, I can copy this as a notepad, export it as a notepad, sorry, copy it to Excel and rearrange. All this information plays significant impact in the paper or the chapter you're writing. And with that said, we've achieved the first objective and the second objectives. Remember, these are performance evaluation. If you look at, when we look at the 3 aspects of the bibliometric review, the performance evaluation and the science aspect has been covered. Now let's look at the network analysis itself, which is the third objective. We want to see the area of focus. What is the focus of researchers on smart city development? Same principle, same drop down, but instead of us looking at citation, now we move on to co-occurrences. Select co-occurrence, select all keywords. You want to have all keywords, both the ones that are written on the paper and the one that the journal or the outlet used to index the paper. If we click on next, it will show us the minimum number of occurrences of keywords. Ideally, this is set at 5. When you open your VoiceWare, it's always set at 5. But like I said, there's no add rule. If we look at here, it says we have 854 keywords. You cannot have all that on your map. It will make your map look clustered, that look unappealing. So you want to refine it. I want something that is appealing to, that I can easily see and I can make logical conclusion. So I decided to reduce this to 3 from 5, and then I have 35 keywords that has been talked about at least 3 times. If I move this to 5, this will reduce. Okay, so for me, when I did this, I felt okay, 3 is fine, and I have 35. That means 35 keywords have been talked about at least 3 times in different documents. If I click on next, I will have this drop down, just like the other ones also. But this time it's talking about keywords. Now, these keywords will be 35, and I need to export it as my notepad before I click on finish. Why am I doing that? So that I have the information, because by the time I click on finish, it's going to give me a map, and I might not be able to come back to this particular figure again. I have to redo it. So what I do first is to select, right click, select, and export as notepad. The major reason, another major reason is that so I can come back and use this as my area for further study when I start explaining, and I'll show you why that is. But if you look at these keywords, from the beginning, this occurrences is saying that smart city, the word smart city I've talked about at least 60 times. It goes down like that to up to 3. And if I click on finish, this is what I have. I have this map coming out. Now, if you look at the file, if you click on file, you can easily save this as a JPEG or as a PNG file so that you can put it in your work. If you look at the item aspect, the item aspect will show you the different clusters. So within this particular study, you can see here 35 items, which means 35 keywords that I've occurred 3 times. I have 6 clusters. For most of us that are familiar with exploratory factor analysis, your EFA is similar. It's almost the same analogy. You have clusters. Then those clusters, you now name them based on the relationship within the keywords. It's the same thing that happens here. So you look at these 35 keywords that have been clustered into 6. If you look at each of them, the first one is also always the red aspect. You have the blue, you have the green. Let's look at the green, for example. You have keywords like your big data, IoT, urban planning, Internet of Things, information management, decision making. I can say based on the latent similarity of all this particular variable or these keywords together, I can group them and name them big data and IoT in smart city development. What this is saying is that people have been talking about big data and IoT in smart city development. If we look at, let's take another example. Let's look at the blue area. You have renewable energy related to smart city. You have smart grid. No, okay. You have signal processing, artificial intelligence, and vehicles and buildings. I can now give that a different name to say maybe smart city in relation to renewable energy based on the keywords inside. You don't even need to stress yourself looking at this. When you come to this cluster here by the side, you just scroll down, you see all the keywords within that particular cluster. And based on that, you can now name it. If you see the first cluster talks about city development, energy efficiency, energy utilization, green computing, down to your urban development. And that is what you have in the red area. So I can easily name this to say, because of the closeness between sustainable development to smart city, I can name this as Smart City for Sustainable Development. And this is telling me that these are the areas people have talked about: Smart City for Sustainable Development, Internet of Things and big data, and big data for smart city development and renewable energies. And at the end of the day, I can come up with a logical conclusion to say nobody is actually majorly talking about the aspect of policy. Hence, my study that we want to look at developing a smart policy for smart city is relevant, and it is a gap in this particular knowledge. Because people have been talking about different areas, but nobody is focusing on the aspect of policy. That is the trend on the way for you to be able to reinforce your gap in knowledge. You are able to say people are looking at this area, but nobody's talking about this area. Or I can be able to use this to say, okay, these are the different areas of focus based on the objective I've set. I'm not using it to reinforce my gap, but I'm just really depicting what people are saying in that particular area. And that will help me to achieve the third gap. When you export this as a JPEG file, this is what you have, and this is what you want to put within your paper or within your study. This helps you to give like a pictorial view of the area people are talking about. It's now left for you to now discuss them. Cluster 1, the red notes. This includes 5 keywords. These keywords are A, B, C, and D. And based on the latent variable or similarities within these keywords have been named as this. Then you can now go further to the next cluster like that. That helps you to be able to achieve the area of focus. Then the last objective, which is for you to be able to know the trends. That same file, you don't need to reanalyze. If you look at when we did that export, this particular one, after exporting, we have 3 different spaces, different nodes here. You have your network visualization, your overlay visualization, your density visualization. The first one was on network visualization. We use it to understand the area of focus. If I click on the overlay visualization, it will tell me the trend of research focus. So what this is telling me is that from 2015 to 2018, all the keywords that have emanated at least 3 times span from 2015 to 2018. The ones around the purple region are the old ones. So you have keywords like your cloud computing, electronic commerce, your design, your information technology are the old areas people were talking about when they were looking at smart city development. Then the trend moved again to the green areas where you talk about the quality of life, data processing, and the likes. However, the current trend now where people are looking at is in the yellow area. you have public policy, you have energy, big data. So what you're saying now is, if I want to do a research in smart city development, I don't need to stress myself about the aspect of design, electronic commerce, quality of life. No, I need to look at the current area around big data, around urban development, vehicles, artificial intelligence, because these are the current area people are talking about when they talk about smart city development. And this can also, again, help you reinforce your argument to say, nobody is talking about this area. Another interesting thing I do most times to understand my future area for future study, or areas that future researchers need to focus on. I'll take you back. If you look at when I said you need to export these keywords as Notepad. If you export these keywords as Notepad and you take it to Excel, you see the number of occurrences. Smart city is occurring up to 6 times. If I arrange this in terms of descending order, I might find out that green technology or green information or green building is occurring maybe like 3 times. So let's just assume it's occurring just 3 times. It's one of the least occurring keyword. If I come back to this map, right? Or let's say green computing, yes. Green computing is occurring like 3 times. If I come back to this map, you can see that green computing here falls within the current trend, which is in the yellow region. What this is telling me is that green computing is a current trend that people might be looking at, but it is not gaining significant recognition because it's not occurring as much as other areas. So I will now decide to suggest this art area as an area that future researchers can actually look at. Or it can also become a gap in my study to say, okay, yes, it is current, but not the attention it is receiving. It is not as much as other areas. So if I correlate the occurrence in terms of number of occurrence with the recency, I can now be able to suggest it as an area for further studies. I can also look at aspect of vehicles, for example, and see that vehicle has occurred like 2-3 times or 4 times. Then I can now come back also to suggest that as a further study because it is recent, but it is not co-occurring in a high, it is not receiving high recognition as supposed to. That's just for you to be able to draw out future researches because it is important for you to be able to tell the trend and also suggest direction for future studies to follow. And if we're able to do that, we've achieved all 4 objectives that we set out to achieve from the beginning. Okay, what then do we need to do? We need to write up, and this is the last part of the presentation, writing that bibliometric review. You've set out those objectives consciously in your mind. You've done the analysis, you've gotten all your data, you put them in Excel, you have them ready. You now need to write. I'm using the paper format in this case. It might be a chapter in your thesis. I know based on the emerging trends, I also used it in my PhD thesis. I had within my literature review chapter trying to explain the concept I was working on. I had to use the bibliometric review. And even in my book also, I was able to use it to explain that particular phenomenon. It might be you want to just write a paper with it. So when you use this also applies if you're writing your chapter. Unlike your normal empirical data where you have to do your title, abstract, introduction, literature review, because this is a review paper, you won't have a literature review section. It becomes your findings because the findings is what you gathered from the literature. So the ideal structure, you have your title, which is maybe a scientometric review of smart city studies, smart city studies in the built environment. Ideally, you want to write your abstract. The abstract should show clearly the purpose of that particular paper because there must be a purpose, which is the aim you've set out consciously. The purpose of that particular paper must be clearly stated. The methodology adopted, which is a review of extant literature, a scientometric review of extant literature using whatever approach you've adopted. The abstract must also give the key findings. So say, at the end of the study, we've been able to understand that A, B, C, and E are the major authors and the countries. These are the different sources, as well as these are the key findings, depending on how much you are allowed to contribute. Majorly, I focus my findings on the key areas of focus, as well as the trend and the direction for future studies. If you write your findings, Then you can write the value of that particular study. So 4 key aspects your abstract should have. Even if you're not writing it as full heading, you should have the purpose, the method, the findings, as well as the value of that particular study. If you write your abstract mostly is between 150 to 200 words if you're submitting for a paper. You want to write an introduction. The introduction should clearly give a background of that particular study. It's not just about doing a review. There must be a background. How did we get to the point that we are now talking about smart city development? You should be able to tell your reader that this is the problem and this is why we're carrying out this research. The research method or methodology will now come after the introduction, because now you're telling the reviewer or the reader that this is how we came about this findings, this is how we gathered this material, and this is how we were able to put them together. Then the findings come to play. You're looking at publication per year, which is what we've done. We're looking at publication per country. You have different subheadings for each of them. Publication per source. And it's not enough to just say China, US, and India are the most published country or the most cited countries. You need to give reasons. So you want to look at the body of literature to say, okay, this result can be as a result of the fact that China, the government in China, or the Chinese government has been able to invest significant funds in the development of technologies and things like that. That is what you read from literature. And that is why we said your own judgment also is imperative. You bring that together to write a particular section. Same thing, you have publication per source to say, these are the major sources. One thing I also do here is to go back and check. Let's say, for example, engineering, construction, and architecture management, ECAM, is one of the top most cited source. I'll go back and check, what is the citation index of ECAM? What is the H index of ECAM? That I will now add to my study to say, this journal is ranked as A, B, C, or D. It is a Q1 journal. It has this particular citation index. What you're doing is to tell the reviewer or the reader that you're not just dumping the information that you've gathered, but you're explaining further, and so that when they are interested in such journals, they have the right information to go with. Similarly, you want to look at the most published or cited authors. The most published or cited authors, I'll show you an example. You want to write them out. You've exported the file already. You check into the CSV file. You want to see what is their affiliation, what is the number of citation, put it in the table so that somebody can pick it and say, okay, these are the key people that are talking in this area. These are their affiliation. And if I want to check papers, I should check in these different papers. Most cited documents is also done the same way. Then the area of focus is also important. You need to now bring in that network visualization file you've exported, discuss those different clusters under the area of focus. Then also for the trend. Then you can go further to give implication of the findings. This area of focus, what does this mean for this particular research? We found out that people have been talking about smart city in terms of IoT and big data. What does that mean for your study? What is the fact that people are not talking about policy? What does it imply for your study? It means that we now need to look at policy for us to be able to adopt or to implement smart city initiative correctly. After writing the implications, you can now conclude, then you write your references. This is what an ID paper is. Some of the tips that you need to know is that you need to report based on objectives, like I've said earlier. Look at each objective, report based on them. Open the CSV file you downloaded for more information. You want to know, read more on those top cited papers, you can read them from the abstract. It's already in the CSV file you downloaded. Carefully evaluate the clusters of keywords and give reasonable and relevant names. The names you are giving to those clusters, the red, the blue, and the yellow, they must be relevant. They must be related to the keywords within that area. That is where your own expertise also comes in. Emphasize on the relations of clusters to your work. That's why I talked about the implication also. How does this relate to what you're doing? Does it clearly tells us that there's a gap, or it only tells us these are what people are doing and this is what they're not doing that future researchers need to do? Lastly, you must be creative. I always tell people in the real sense, there's no one size fits all in writing. So somebody might have used a particular approach. You can come up with a different approach to arrange your study, as long as it's logical, it's flowing, it's based on the objectives you've set, and it's going to achieve the objectives you've set. you must be creative. And by being creative, you want to have some of those things on the paper. So when you're looking at a bibliometric paper, these are some of the things you see. Most times you see the outline of the research. Under the research methodology chapter section, it's not enough for you to just write. You want to give out, break it down to say, this is the source that was used or database. These are the total number of extraction. When we refine it, this is what, like a framework to show clearly that this is what I've done. So somebody else that wants to do the same research can adopt that framework and put it in their work. This is you being creative. Okay, the CSV file you exported, or sorry, the notepad you've exported, in terms of the number of papers, you can also come up with a graph like we have here. Because okay, I just take those different ones from different papers we've done over time. And this was when I was trying to look at within our research unit, what are the different areas we've published in, who are the people publishing in what area. And we find out that we've done 120 journals and conferences like that and the papers. This is the bibliometric review. If I stop on just journal and conferences, I would then say I'm doing a scientometric review. Also, the exported file, you can look at the years of publication. So you have like a line diagram showing you the different papers, number of papers that have been published each year. So then we can now say from 2018, the discourse on smart city, if this was from the smart city extraction, was high. However, it increased in 2019, then it dropped to 2020, then it kept on dropping even in 2021. It means that maybe people are no more looking at that area, or people are not publishing really in that area again. Then you might want to do a co-authorship. Co-authorship is trying to look at who is co-authoring with who. In this case, we're looking at co-authorship from country. Like I said, I was using publications within our research unit. I'll find that because we are from South Africa, yeah, we are individual. We've co-authored with academics from Nigeria, usually, Ghana, and the United Kingdom. There is also a relationship with authors from Hong Kong, Australia, Qatar, Egypt, and the likes, but it's not as strong as these three major countries. Meaning that if I want to co-author with somebody today, and I don't want to still remain within my same space, I might want to look at all these other countries and see who I can talk to and collaborate with. Same thing, being creative, like I showed you earlier, you can decide to use a map. You can decide to use tables. This table here shows you the number of most published, most cited authors. Like I said earlier, you export the file, you can create it into a table. Remember the notepad gave you the author's names and the number of document and citation. I can look into the CSV file and I will see their affiliation, and I will add the affiliation also to a table. This gives a more robust information of those top authors and where they are coming from. Similarly, when you're talking about the area of focus, to see which when you're talking about the authors or the most cited documents, you want to look at most cited documents. It will give you the documents, right? When you're exporting, it gives you the citation and the total link strength. It won't give you the other information on the title and the source. You now need to go back to the CSV file, look for that most cited document. Is to show you the title. You can look at it, know the source, bring them out and form a table like this. This is you now going further to say, okay, these are the most cited papers. This is the title if you're looking for it. If you want to know the method that was adopted, this is the method. This is what they focused on. You can even go further to even have the findings, to say these are the key findings from this particular study. And that is you just being creative. I can decide to stop here. Somebody else will decide to go further. And then you can look at which author is co-authoring with which other author. And if you look at this also, it's gotten from your voice viewer. Additionally, you can now, when you're presenting your paper, you can use different schematic drawings. Okay, you can use different schemes. Most times, I like to give like an overview, a summary of everything I have done to say these are the key area of focus. So if you look at this particular schematic diagram down here, it talks about the dynamic capability needed for digitalization. And based on the bibliometric review I've done, I've been able to identify 5 major areas that people are talking about. However, there is the area of future studies, like I explained earlier, looking at the co-occurrence or the number of occurrence and the recency in that particular area. And I can now suggest that as area for future studies. And this scheme diagram gives like a one-stop view of everything I've found within that particular study. It depends on you. There's no art rule. You can design it any way you like. You can design it complicated like this. If you like playing around with what this I did with Microsoft Word, you can design it the way you like. You don't even need any sophisticated tool. Microsoft Word, you'll find PowerPoint, you can design what you want. This is also a similar output that was designed by a colleague. So depending on what you want to do, you want to have like an overview. This will come at the end of everything. You've talked about the area of focus, you've talked about the links. You now bring this to give like a good view of what is happening. Also, you can do this by bringing out arrows to show which words are missing on that map, and you can type them yourself. Okay, to conclude, bibliometric is becoming popular and we can't avoid it. It's something most people get drawn towards. Another thing I need to mention is if you are within the academic system and you want to gain increased citation, bibliometric will be one of the ways to go, because literature review papers are always sought after. They are always cited. And I know some journals that prefer review and theoretical papers so that they can improve their citation also. So you at least try once in a while to just bring in one or two bibliometric review papers to help boost your citation. It is a quantitative study of various aspects of research topic, and it is used to gain insight into the dynamics of growth of knowledge. And much more, the adoption of bibliometrics technique is in various disciplines stimulates learning growth of literature on bibliometrics and its related areas. We must always understand, when you write your paper, it looks very fine to you. When you write your chapter, it looks very fine to you. It looks like a perfect paper until it gets to either your reviewer or your supervisor. So do not be discouraged. You're going to get so many comments. Your first bibliometric paper might not be the best. You will have so much input from either the reviewer. Some of them might not sound reasonable to you, but the best is take them, fix them, and hopefully we'll get papers that are accepted. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. This was really explanatory. We really enjoyed the lecture.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I announced previously in the chat box that you can drop your questions and take note of your questions. So while we're getting ready to ask some questions, we're going to take a snapshot first, since we have a full house. So as usual, please, we want to see your face. Show your videos, please, so that we can take a snapshot and then the patients will anchor the session for the questions. Okay, let's start our video. Some videos are still off. Okay. Yes, I'm seeing more faces. Good. Okay, some videos are still off. Thank you. Now take the pictures, and as usual, we're going to say why. You can't say why without smiling. So 1, 2, 3, why? Yes.
I.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, why?
WAiC.
Yes. And then the last is some videos are still up. You have an opportunity to to start your video. Okay, good. 1, 2, 3, why?
WAiC.
Thank you very much. So back to Dr. Patience for the Q&A session.
Thank you again, Dr. Douglas. This was, wow, 2 hours of information. Interesting information. It was enlightening. And I know everyone feels the same way. And it was really hands-on, and we are thankful for that. It was practical. You know, a couple of people have asked me, is there software for this? Is there a software for this?
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
We can. We can.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us? Please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can. Yes, yes.
Can you stop sharing? Yes, we can. Oh. Can you hear me now? Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes, we can hear you. Dr. Patience, we can hear you.
But I can't hear. Sorry, I can't hear anyone.
Oh, that's the network.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
clearly
we
we can hear you.
We can hear you loud and clear.
We can hear you.
Mine on now. Okay. Come up now. Can you hear?
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, doctor, you can hear us, right?
Okay.
Yes, we can.
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, let's see. Maybe I should just go ahead with the question and answer session. Do we have questions? No, we can't. We can hear you rather, but you can't hear us.
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Oh, good. That's great. That's great.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry. Technology.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Anyway, Mrs. Olade, you can go on. It's fine.
Okay, thank you. Let me say thank you to you, Dr. Patience, for at least hanging on, holding forth. And a very big thank you to our resource person, Dr. Godblass. Thank you from all indications, from all the charts, the appreciations on the chart. It shows you've presented a very wonderful presentation. So thank you to you once again. I hope we can all hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, this is a question and answer session. And I believe after digesting the wonderful presentation, our participants will have one or two things to ask or to confirm. So please, I don't know if we have questions on the chat box. If you have questions, can you please put your questions on the chat box, or you raise your hand so that we'll attend to your question. Questions, please. Yes, we have the comments. Nice presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Godblass, for the wonderful presentation. Very insightful presentation. Yes, thank you. Nice, okay. Interesting, awesome. Yes, very informative, very insightful. Yes, can we have your questions, please?
Okay, I think there's a question on the chat box that was sent earlier.
Okay, please, can you read that?
Okay, it says it's EBSCO or EBSCO EBSCOhost, yeah, a viable database that can support a bibliometric review. Well, if you look at the aspect of First Viewer, which I presented on, we'll have majorly the Web of Science, the Scopus, and I think Dimension and PubMed. EBSCOhost is not among them. Well, EBSCOhost is a good platform if you are not doing a visualization. Let's say you want to just look at performance evaluation and you're stopping there. You can easily use EBSCOhost to gather your information. And remember, bibliometric review is not just about the visualization aspect. It also involves you being able to gather the right information and use that to look at the performance index of different publishers and different authors and the likes. So it's not just about the visualization alone. But with VoiceViewer, you cannot use EBSCOhost from what I've seen so far. Maybe in future they might improve on it. I know EBSCOhost is common in Nigeria with most databases, most institutions subscribe to EBSCOhost, and that's why maybe that question came. But with VoiceViewer, you might not be able to use EBSCOhost. Okay. And thank you for the wonderful comments in terms of the presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Doctor, for doing justice to that question. They have another question on the chat box. Samuel Abiodun is saying, please, what's the difference between bibliometric review and meta-analysis?
I thank you very much, sir. Your bibliometric review is you trying to look at trends within a research, look at performance of individuals, countries, and the likes, like we've said. You're bringing in quantitative analysis into existing literature. However, meta-analysis, or some people call your meta-synthesis, dwells more on you picking a small set of data, like you do with your normal, what's it called now? Your systematic review. You gather your data, but you are trying to compare empirical findings from those information. So let's say you download 10 papers on the courses. You want to compare these courses from these 10 different papers. Then you can now ascribe ranks to these different courses to say this ranked first because of the number of occurrence within this particular 10 papers. But your meta-analysis is done within a very small number, and you do that manually. Unlike the bibliometric review, where you have to use through your software to come up with a analysis from a large amount of information. I hope that has been able to clarify the difference.
Thank you, Doctor, for clarifying the difference between bibliometric review and meta-analysis. Yet another question from the same person. Can you export from POP software to VOS viewer?
Okay, I might not be sure of what you mean by POP software. Maybe I might not be conversant with that. Can you please clarify?
Okay. Mr. Abiodun Samuel Alara, please.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and valuable information, Dr. Douglas.
Thank you.
Yeah, the POP software is the publish or perish software.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think I had like a brain. Anyway, POP, I have not tried using publish or perish to export to VOS, because if you look at what I showed when I opened the VOS, there was the only 4 spaces you have is for Web of Science, data, Scopus, Dimension, or PubMed. So publish or perish might not really work. I know there are some other softwares you can link publish or perish to, if I'm not mistaken. There are some out there which I'm not conversant with it. Majorly, I use the VoiceViewer and to do what I want to do within my short period of time. But you can really try it. It's possible, because we might not know. It's possible that you might be able to link it. You can play around with this, sincerely.
That's right. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Doctor. More questions, please. Let's have your question. Okay, we have another question on the chat box. This is from Isidore Ezima. Can the bibliometric analysis be conducted for 2 or 3 databases simultaneously?
Okay, thank you very much. If you look at the Web of Science and Scopus, there's significant overlap, like I said earlier. So it is possible for you to use both databases. Even your, some people have seen bibliometric review using Google Scholar and the likes. It is very possible. You just need to be creative with it. With VozViewer, what I do if I want to use 2 databases, I download my information from Web of Science, for example, and I also download my CSV file from Scopus. So I now have to manually merge these 2 documents together within my Excel and save it as a CSV file. What I'm doing there is to be able to refine the information and remove overlap within that particular area. So when I'm reporting, I'm definitely going to report to say the data was gathered from both Web of Science and what is called now Scopus. However, my analysis, when I'm doing it, I'll now save it as a CSV file and import it into VozViewer directly. So it is possible.
Okay. Thank you for that, Doctor. I guess there are no more questions.
I see there's a hand up.
Okay. Let's see.
I think there's a hand up.
Olusegun Ogutana, you have your hand raised up. Please, do you want to say something? Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Okay.
Let's have.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity for asking my question. And thanks, Dr. Douglas, for the very informative session again. Sorry, I was a bit reluctant since it's a woman in construction thing. So I'm not sure men are also allowed to, don't mind me. So my question is about on the points of downloading the CSV file. I've had an experience where after downloading the file and loading it onto VozViewer, it's not, is it accepting it, I should say, or running? So my question is, if you check towards the end, there's a part that talks about funding information on Scopus and all those stuff. Is it really a must to add those parts, or we can just stop it at the first 3? I can't really remember, to avoid a very cumbersome or very rowdy Excel sheet or CSV file. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Robito. If you look at the Scopus, this is like you've said, some of those information are actually not necessary. Most times I suggest we select all and download it as a single file, because sometimes you might not know the information that is necessary. But in doing that, sometimes when you download those files, they might not open in your VozViewer. So what I always do is, instead of I select everything, download as a single file, and when I have that issue, I go back to that CSV file itself. Sometimes it might be some information that are supposed to come in one single row is spilling over to another row. So I just carefully look at those particular information and try to delete them. Another thing you want to do before downloading is to look at what information is not necessary, because your VozViewer normally will analyze with your references. It will analyze with the type of sources that where the source is coming from. Mostly the funding information is not necessary unless you want to also carry out analysis to look at who are the funding bodies that are sponsoring this particular type of research. It might be an information that you want to put. It might be you're looking at a report. You want to come up with a report, then you have to do that. But in most cases, it might not be necessary. Another thing that might not be necessary in that particular area that you might want to uncheck is the aspect of paper ID information. If you look at those particular areas one carefully, you will see ID information, you will see paper number. Those ones might not be important, so you might uncheck them. But most case scenario, the best case scenario, download everything, take it into your CSV Excel, carefully look at your Excel and remove those overlaps, and you should be able to run a CSV file within your VOS view. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I believe you're satisfied, very much satisfied with the answer and the clarifications there. Once again, thank you, Dr. Douglas. Do we have any question again? Anyone? Comments or clarification before we end this session? Okay. Ibidayo Aliu, you're welcome on board, sir. Let's have you. Can you unmute yourself and make a contribution or a question?
First of all, I have to thank the organizers of this conference. It's an enabling conference. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Douglas. My question is that I heard you say voice, is it voice viewer or how do you call it? I don't know. My network was so bad.
Yeah, voice viewer.
I couldn't really follow you. Okay. Where can you get it downloaded?
It's available at voiceviewer.com, and it's also on the slide. The link is on the slide. It can easily be downloaded, but it's voiceviewer.com. It's straightforward.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate
it. As we've gotten clarification about the voice viewer, that we can actually download it. Once again, we say thank you, Dr. Douglas. This is a very insightful presentation. And even from the contributions from participants, it's an evidence that we all have been well impacted by your presentation. So thank you. I want to believe there are no more questions or comments. Yes, Madam, please, you can lower your hand, Madam Ibidayo, so that we can confirm if we don't have any other hand raised up. Okay.
Sorry, can I quickly ask something?
Yes, you can. Dr. Ogun, is that Oguntana?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay. Please, Dr. Douglas, in a situation where you have your keyword, let me use something like modular construction, having series of other words that can be used interchangeably with it. Let's say about 15 of them. And you're trying to check it in a field where you taught us about adding the use of hand, A-N-D, right? Do you have to use all those 15, in the search? Or I don't know. I've tried something around that. There was a word that has about 16 keywords or terms meaning the same thing, Also, I can also use something like green building, which we can also refer to as sustainable construction, as it has many words that means the same thing. So do you advise we first identify all those keywords and use them with the the way you put them in this thing before you now put the hand? Let's say you want to check them in automation, for example. I'm sure you get what I'm trying to ask.
Yes, I get you. Okay. To clarify, it is important you use all keywords that you can think of. And why are you doing that? You're trying to tell whoever is reading that you've actually done a thorough job, because you will explain how you came about those keywords. So you can say, based on the preliminary review of existing studies, these keywords or these words have been used in place of this particular study. So in place of this particular phenomenon. So you're talking about modular construction, for example. You can say, according to this person or this person, modular construction can also be precast construction. It can also be prefabrication. It can be offsite construction, industrialized building system of building and the likes. All these keywords are what you will now use. You are doing that because you want to show that you've done a robust background work. So I would advise you use all 15 keywords, even if it's 20. I've seen someone use almost 50 different keywords, and you use them using the using all to search, because you're telling the search engine to search this or this in your particular document. So if you now go to, you're looking at it in a particular domain. What I do most times is, after putting all my words, I now use the word and. So what I'm saying is, all this, either prefabrication or modular construction or offsite construction and built environment and automation and construction, depending on where I'm looking at it from. So that those two keywords will appear either in the title, abstract, or the keywords of those particular papers. That works perfectly. Another approach you can use is to leave out the aspect of the field when you're searching for the keywords. Just use those 15 keywords directly, search within the year range. When you now get your data, let's say you have about 5,000 papers in that area, which is coming from different areas, you can now refine. You go to your source, your area of focus. You can refine it. Most times, if I'm using Scopus, I refine it to just engineering. Within engineering, you will see papers coming from your construction, everything within built environment. That will help you also, instead of using the within the keywords. So it's two ways. You can use it in your keywords, or rather go and refine it. Of late, most times what I do is just refine. I use the refining, use engineering, and I stick to that. I hope that clarifies. But it's best to use all keywords that you can think of, because that will help you to give robustness within your discussion.
Thank you so much. Very, very clear.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Yeah, it's better to use all the keywords as he has explained. So it will give you more options of what exactly you're searching for. Thank you very much, Doctor. We thank all those who have participated and asked questions, which has also thrown more insights. Gradually, we're coming to the end of the session, and I believe we are all satisfied as per this session. No more participants who wants to make clarification or ask questions. So on this note, we'll close this session. Once again, we say thank you so very much, Dr. Douglas.
Thank you.
The Lord will continue to increase your wisdom.
Amen.
Okay. So Dr. Ogutono mentioned the other time that he wasn't sure whether this was extremely for females. Yes, it's initially meant for females, but the organizers have been so magnanimous enough to extend the kind of fellowship to our male colleagues. So we welcome you on board. That is why in the question, when you are filling the link, the question of the link, the form, the Google form, you have the option of male or female. So we would like everyone, all participants, to please proclaim this gospel. Let's inform all others that so they too can come and benefit from these wonderful presentations we've been having here, so that there'll be more growth, and then we will actually achieve the purpose for which we have set up this mentorship chat, the webinar. So I want to say thank you again once again. Thank you to all the participants. Thank you to Dr. We're going to the announcement session, and I'm going to call Dr. Patience once again to give us the announcements, what we have as announcements.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to, on behalf of everyone from WAiC, really say a big thank you to Dr. Douglas. Thank you so much for this, all of this information for free. Honestly,
Yeah.
we are grateful. We are grateful.
Very good.
And then we wish you the very best in all your endeavors.
Amen.
And to everyone in the house, information has been passed down, knowledge has been shared. It will do no good if we don't use them. So let's engage. Thankfully, we don't have to go to the field. All we need to do is sit down and he said something, if we don't have Scopus or Web of Science, we can collaborate. So you can reach out to us and to see how we can help. So in case you don't have any of those databases. And for the next webinar coming up next month, the title will be Qualitative Research and Data Analysis, Making In-Depth Meanings of Construction Research. So that's what we'll be looking at next month. The proposed date is actually August 30, but whatever happens, will keep us posted. Thank you again, and wishing you all the very best till we meet next month. God bless you all.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
We will have to call on someone to give us the closing. Closing prayer.
We're coming to the end of the meeting. So thanks till next time. God bless you. All the best. Thanks a
Yes,
lot.
please, can we
Bye,
have a
everyone.
closing prayer? Sister Linda?
Bye.
Hello? Hello?
Calling your attention.
Okay.
Yes, someone should give us the closing prayer. Can I call on QS Annette, okay?
Yes.
QS Annette, okay, can you please unmute yourself and give us the closing prayer?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Father, we want to say thank you to you for this session. We are glad that you have delved and seen our hearts, that which we wish to do, to educate and to uplift the profession and minds. We thank you for those who have spoken, and we thank you for those who have taken part. Father, continue to let your knowledge be in us, continue to use us as vessels so that we will propagate this knowledge to the world and to better ourselves, the profession, and mankind as a whole. Father, we thank you and we look forward to the other sessions that are to come. And we pray we meet ourselves in joy and happiness, and we have the grace to be partakers. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, madam.
You're most welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. See you next month by the special grace of God. And let's inform others about this laudable program. So once again,
God bless you all.
I say thank you. Thank you to our crew, Dr. Patience, Suji Olayeni, Dr. Sheyi Ajayi, Sister Linda. Thank you all. I'm signing out. QS Esther Oladi. Thank you. See you next month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Thank you so much. Yeah.